Hey there, welcome to episode 53 of the Quaggling Sand audio program. I am your host, Dan Hugo, recording this on the night, about 10 minutes before 11 p.m., Tuesday, November 12, 2024. You can already hear that my nighttime voice is even worse than my morning recording an audio program episode voice. Purely allergies, purely dust in the air. I'm actually drinking some lemon ginger tea. We'll see what happens. And by the way, I could make this part of the episode, but my voice does best when I talk all day. I know that sounds weird or completely practical. I think not speaking to humans through the day, except for my audio programs, which I record 4 times a week, probably does not help. If I go to a trade show, for example, if I go to the Consumer Electronics Show coming up in January, for example, and I'm there multiple days and I'm speaking to people over the din of the crowd and whatnot, my voice tends to be a little bit more cooperative. So maybe I just need to go to the convention center. We do have it right here in Vegas. I think it would take me an hour to get there. But if there's no convention, it would just be me talking to myself, which I can do right here, right now. Today's topic, today's title of today's episode, another season already. That's right. Episode 53 is the first episode in season 1 because I start counting at 0. That's how that works. So let us begin. First of all, wherever you found this audio program, hopefully there is an episode description. Within you will find the show notes with a summary that I will read to you and some links. Today's episode is only the 2 usual shameless self-promotion links. So there we go. I'm going to describe the Quaggling Sand thing a little bit, so I won't touch on that here. So welcome to Season 1. The summary. Welcome, Season 1. Hey, I just said that. A nice time to transition from the old and the new. From the old to the new. Okay, let me edit my notes here. From the old to the new, along with the future of our beloved country, perhaps. Still not going into politics so much here, not to worry. So what will this next season have in store? I don't really know if I answer that question today. I do touch on some possibilities, but nothing is certain. Man, my voice is not cooperating. Why am I recording this at night? Because I have a meeting at 8 a.m. on the Strip, Las Vegas Strip, Wednesday morning, which means I got to hit the road before I wouldn't even have anywhere near the time it would take to do this if I intend to close my eyes for even a moment. So, nighttime audio program recording it is. Tea time. Same old links. buymeacoffee.com/DanHugo if you are interested in checking out links to my other audio programs, which I will describe later. By the way, you don't have to spend any money. I don't know if you can hear that production by the street. A little buzzy, probably a motorcycle, maybe a little car. I use Buy Me a Coffee and the next one, Ko-fi.com, ko-fi.com/DanHugo, because they're free and they're generally well known and recognized. A lot of open source projects use, especially independent, like solo projects, people will use Buy Me a Coffee. They'll embed the button or a link into a README file, an HTML file, web page. So it's a well-known outlet. It's a little bit more friendly than a donate button, and plus I'm not really looking for donations. If anyone wants to throw some money down for some coffee, that's where all the funds that flow through either of these will go, but you're under no obligation. So buymeacoffee.com/DanHugo and Ko-fi.com, ko-fi.com/DanHugo. I do pronounce it strangely to emphasize that it is not coffee, but Ko-fi, Ko-fi.com/DanHugo. I did post to both of these platforms today, 12 November. And I'm going to start being more conscientious about supplying some content to these sites to make it worth your while to click through. Still free, don't worry. So we'll see how that goes. Anyway, more tea. I'm just trying lemon ginger. I get these, I think they're yogi teas at Smith's, a Kroger store. Not a fan of Kroger, but not bad. I also get Egyptian licorice, which is okay. Neither of these are particularly helpful. Big picture. To be honest, what's really helpful, and I considered having some, but it's getting to be a little bit late. A little, even something as simple as like onion soup or, chicken broth or something simple. Throw in a bunch of scorpion pepper sauce, Tabasco, or something spicy like that. Try that next time. Anyway, what is this? I have mentioned before the origin of the name of this audio program, Quaggling Sand. My own term coined when I was in single digits years for what you might call pins and needles. I don't remember exactly how old I was, but I don't think I was in kindergarten yet, so preschool, maybe younger. The idea with Quaggling Sand, the audio program, has always been stories and reflections, most definitely a vanity endeavor, to say the least. I still create a bullet list of items to talk about, which I'm reading right now. Sometimes I read from it, sometimes I go off into tangents. So it's a mixture of script, talking points, and jumping off points. So I prepare something relevant, a relevant context each week. But this stuff has not been intentionally topical. I don't check the headlines, with only a couple of exceptions, and those will continue to be rare. I did create an episode recently about my personal politics, My Politics, the title, just to put it out there, just a little backgrounder, how I have eventually arrived at a fairly centrist position. I quoted political theorist Chris Rock. I think he does stand up also about forming opinions before we know what the issues are. So you can check that out. But mostly I just pick a topic that is interesting or that I recall. If I go outside, I try to go outside every day and do some walking at least, get some fresh air, a little throwback to the pandemic era. So sometimes when I'm walking, I'll say, oh, what about that one time? The band camp. I have been pondering an escape from audio only, which everybody does at some point with the term podcast, and now applying to just about anything. Video, audio, live or recorded, offline, anything goes. By offline, I mean not live, right? So you can't jump in a live stream, sort of the opposite. So if you're recording offline, it's just the people in the conversation, sort of a corded off area. So anything goes. By the way, I think the term podcast needs to change to something more generic or less happily. Though maybe it already is generic. Probably, arguably is. Everybody, they'll refer to a video stream or a video interview. So offline, whatever it is. It's always a podcast or the pod, which I think is kind of annoying. But it's the history of podcasting, the history of creating these compressed audio files, thanks to the podfather. What's his name again? Totally spacing on his name. He does the No Agenda podcast. It'll come to me eventually. Anyway, the whole reason podcast started was because he spoke to Steve Jobs, and they eventually did an onstage demo showing how iPods could play audio content, almost like a radio program, except from anyone, anywhere. And then Dave Weiner added the enclosure feature to RSS, enabling distribution of audio programs anywhere. I'm still not thinking of his name, and I don't want to look it up. That's so annoying. I haven't thought about his name in a while. He kind of irked me during the pandemic. I tweeted at him about speaking to Racaniello, virology professor, I think at Columbia, but Vincent Racaniello, great program, Daniel Griffith, a panel of experts, very not political. And he smarted off at me about how, that's just they're fans of Fauci, so, man. And so, whatever, dude. But the No Agenda podcast with Adam Curry. How could I forget that name? Adam Curry. There you go. So, yeah, I would like to see a new name. That's why I try to use audio program more than podcast. No biggie. Old stories or new stories. So this again is more of a vanity channel. So it's mostly my own stories. I have a lot of college stories and a bunch of tales from the very early days in New Jersey. That's where I was born. Or when we first moved to Phoenix in around, 1977? I think it was 77. And a bunch of So we first moved to Phoenix and then to Glendale in Arizona. And some of these are, of course, self-indulgent. They're totally boring. This whole audio program is, by definition, self-indulgent, so it kind of goes with the territory. Some of the stories are interesting. Some of them are topical for the listener, not necessarily in time, but might spark their own memory, or there might be some sort of a insight. Every once in a while, there will be a story that has some sort of not a moral, but maybe a take-home message. Obviously, new stuff happens to everyone every day, though my time in Vegas has slowed down quite a bit in these post-pandemic times. A lot of energy focused on startup effort that I'm trying to work on right now. An occasional meeting, walking around the neighborhood, visiting the gym, not much intrigue. When I was working at Intel, because I was traveling most weekends, heading off to hackathons or whatever was going on, my time in Vegas would be brief, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday-ish. So there would always be something, because I would always figure, wow, I'm only home a couple days a week. Might as well head downtown or go to wherever. When I first moved to Vegas, and I actually had a map, and I think the entire platform that was enabling this capturing of my location and traveling and whatnot, although I'm sure Google has it somewhere. But I had this map, and it showed all the places that I was meeting with people and talking about, what's going on in Vegas when I first moved here. And it was just covered. The whole greater Vegas area was covered. And my argument against the whole downtown project or bust, I said, yeah, there are people doing interesting things well beyond the boundaries of downtown Las Vegas. The downtown project needs to branch out a little bit. Nobody cared what I thought, so too bad. Greater Vegas still exists. Downtown project, not as much. A lot of energy, though, focused on my startup efforts, so hopefully I'll have some cool stuff to talk about soon. I do spend time talking about that more specifically on the Cafe Genius Impresarios audio program, linked on buymeacoffee.com/Dan Hugo. My stories and your stories, perhaps, and some ideas. I have mentioned this a few times here and there, that I think it would be interesting to have a conversation with someone with a similar story or a similar experience around a particular thing, place, type of event, whatever. The logistics of this might be interesting, partially because most people want to tell their story, not necessarily dialogue around it. I'm sure if I was telling a story about, if I was telling a story about my politics, it would be pretty much a timeline that I'm going through. And if someone were to interrupt me and say, wait, why did you vote for Bill Clinton? And I would say, well, I'm about to explain that. So it would be tricky. I'm not saying it would be impossible, but the logistics would be interesting, partially because people like to tell their own story. But also because we would perhaps want to negotiate for similar stories to compare, right? So you wouldn't want to, like, oh, I don't have a story about that. Like, I didn't go to the school that you went to. We can talk about attending college or something about high school education or the typical public education in different parts of America, the United States. But I think it would be challenging to come up with exactly how that would work. If I had to guess, and I suppose I will, the audio version of Quaggling Sand will probably remain, as you are listening to it now, a vanity storytelling channel. Maybe a video version would be comparing stories or some back and forth if we did an interview or conversational mode, something like one-upping each other. Like, oh yeah, you voted for Clinton? I voted for Gore twice in Florida. It's maybe a little inside for the history buffs. I wonder, now that I'm preparing this episode, so this was before this moment, as I was creating this script / bullet list / topic agenda, if there might be a way to peer into other stories as told by other people and do something like a reaction of sorts. This might be worth an experiment, so we'll see. Maybe. I believe my focal areas have been a bit scattered. I'm trying not to get too stuck on one time frame or one particular topic area, from picking locks to earthquakes to flying to computers. There's a fairly broad spectrum of possibilities. There are just over 50 years worth of material. Surely there are a few more hours to fill with tales. I always say tales of woe, spelled WHOA. I have to say, for better or worse, most of the really juicy things will most likely not make it to this audio program. Even changing the names of the innocent and even the guilty wouldn't make retelling a few things worthwhile or, well, much of a good idea. So these sorts of things they will likely remain the stuff of legend without any need to confirm nor deny. So that is to say, I will exercise the fifth now and then. I'm really banking on having some interesting tales from this more recent Vegas window. So post-pandemic, post-2022 probably. It's when I really kind of jumped back into the fictitiously labeled startup scene of the greater Vegas area. I liken it to going into the kitchen and seeing how the sausage is made. If the startup efforts unfold nicely, though, there may be some negatives. The rough road, the steep climb, and eventual success and world domination. Vegas is a very weird place if one compares it to a generally entrepreneurial place like, Silicon Valley of the 90s and even of the 2010s. By the way, people will often make the mistake of thinking that Las Vegas, jumping ahead of myself, they make the mistake of believing that Silicon Valley started in the 90s. Like, oh yes, 1993 when Clinton took office and Al Gore invented the internet and everything exploded from there. I've recently done an episode of the Cafe Genius Impresarios audio program about some of the history of Silicon Valley, which really begins and we'll see its culture of innovation flourish organically starting in the late 1800s. So to believe that Silicon Valley, and we'll see this here in Vegas, which I'm sure I'll comment on into the future, people want to move here because they made some money in the post-Great Recession timeframe, post-2008, and they'll think, hey, Vegas is the next place where I might extract value from create a startup scene. And so there's this belief that, oh, yeah, Silicon Valley from 2010, we can do that here. We just have to sprinkle some money and the innovation will blossom. Not so. So from the entrepreneurial and innovator perspective, even though some here are convinced that this is indeed the next Silicon Valley, nothing could be further nor farther from the truth. Not in the near term anyway. I mean, give some place 10, 100 years, definitely 100, but a minimum of 10. And to be quite honest, they really haven't gotten a good start. We could argue that they've kind of started in the last year or two, maybe. And when I say 10 years, I mean young people in 7th grade, age 12, give or take. But essentially, 7th grade, age 12, the junior high school curriculum. They're starting to change classes. They're moving between different teachers, different rooms. So physical motion, interacting with different students. They're maybe able to take electives. They're participating in after-school sports or a first robotics challenge or chess club. Who knows? Different schools have different features and different student bodies will have different interests and participatory populations. So it's hard to say, but the need, the impetus to be entrepreneurial, if it exists around that time, it must be fed. It must be like a bellows. It must be oxygenated. Pardon me. Don't let that coal go out. Don't let the desire to be entrepreneurial or innovative be snuffed out by, you just have to learn how to be an employee here in Vegas, which is unfortunately the majority of the educational direction, I suppose, over the last several years. And I think it shows. So those are my opinions on that. Tea time. So reviews and whatnot, I have pondered reviewing some of the many, many books I have read or listened to. And there is a difference, but it's not completely obvious. Like I like listening to audiobooks. Usually when I go out walking, I'll listen anything from Stranger in a Strange Land to books on programming, clean architecture, clean agile, data-centric programming methods. Julie Gayling's book, I think, Scout Mentality. It's really good, actually. It's a book about scout versus soldier mentality. The the willingness of a scout to learn new information while a soldier looks for confirmation of their preconceived notions in her narrative. So it's pretty interesting. Yeah, there's a difference though. I mostly do audiobooks, longer form, and I read articles, so reviews of audiobooks. Maybe movies. I've seen most of the movies about which the various YouTube reaction viewers make their content, which are usually first time watching. Most modern movies are junk, so not much to do there as far as first time watching today's movies. And again, I'm going to say something like 80% of the movies that people watch in their reaction videos, and they're interesting. Yeah, I'll leave that to them. I don't really want to create episodes for the sake of having episodes, so I'm trying to keep it interesting while also being honest, sincere, legit content. Since I'm not monetizing this audio program, it is always possible to skip a week or so, make a short episode about a simple topic, like starting this new season, for example, or maybe something else. Really, I need to have some sort of a website or a way to indicate that, hey, this week there's no episode. Yeah, I can do an episode that is just me saying that. I think that's kind of annoying because it still gets downloaded as if it were an episode. It's almost like RSS should have more functionality along these lines, but it was cobbled together and it's persisting even though it's kind of broken. Anyway, I'll talk more about that over the years, I'm sure. Most reviews benefit from photos or video or anything along these lines that would ideally dovetail with a companion blog entry somewhere, a photo or video gallery, or basically some auxiliary info. So this will likely fit into an expanded Quaggling Sand experience as yet undefined, but which might include these things. There are occasions where I've thought about like making a Medium post or posting photos. I don't really use Instagram anymore, but I honestly think a content creator platform, I hate to call myself that. I think content is a horrible word. Content creator sounds a little bit too lofty. But people that are generally creating repeated, I don't know if you can hear that one, production by a street. People that are creating either their writing, their blog posts, or Substack. And by the way, you can do better than Substack, I promise you. You almost like not WordPress, because WordPress is really showing their true colors lately and all that silliness, but a platform, someone who wants to create and publish their own content. There's that word again. Hey, I want to publish my photos. I want to publish videos. I want people to be able to subscribe and maybe provide some sort of financial support or encouragement, a tip jar or whatever. But I want to be able to distribute the content to social media sites, all these things, totally doable. So to me, it's possible that maybe the next wave, now that decentralization and federation, Mastodon and PeerTube, PixelFed, Lemmy, there's a whole bunch of software tools out there that can interoperate. So you can have your own server, you can join multiple servers, you don't have to join just a Twitter or a Facebook. So lots more possibilities, a return to the wild, wild west of the original internets back in the day. Web 2.0, bleh. Luckily, the metaverse seems to have faded away too. So to me, it seems like it'd be interesting to have a self-owned platform. So there's this notion called Posse, publish on your own server, POS, syndicate elsewhere or everywhere. So SE, POS, SE. Posse, so you own your own content. You're never worried about being canceled or people changing the rules, or your content is not being discovered. People can find it. You can publish RSS feeds if you want. There's no, we don't support RSS feeds. Now you could publish your activity stream and make use of ActivityPub to get it out there to your subscribers and so on. So there's all kinds of stuff that maybe some sunlight needs to shine on those things. Tea time. So I make other programs. This is the last section, by the way. So today is going to be a brief episode, and I do have to head out in the morning. It's 11:17 as I'm recording this right at this moment. Not that I go to bed early, but I will be waking up early. Other programs and maybe more. So I've mentioned before now and then, and I link in my coffee-related self-promotion profiles, as I've already mentioned, that, I mention them at the top of the show, each episode, that I am, as I speak right now, producing 4 unique audio program episodes each week. So from a publishing perspective, on Tuesday, it's Let's Innovate for Vegas. It's about our Innovate for Vegas Foundation endeavors, plans, hopes, and dreams. Wednesday is this one you're listening to right now, though you may listen to it on any day you like. So published on Wednesday, listen to 100 years from now, who knows. Thursday is FFS Talk, a program that really would benefit from guests and some debate or discussion at least, aimed at identifying what works, what does not, and what we might do about it. What is FFS Talk? What does that stand for? Well, if you don't know any Irish people, you should meet some and they'll tell you. Friday is the Cafe Genius Impresarios audio program about the entrepreneurial innovator ecosystem found in the greater Vegas area, though there's no real need to limit the scope to this particular locality. As I've already mentioned, we're not really going to be the next Silicon Valley anytime soon, but surely other cities think that way also. And I got to be honest, I've done an episode about this too. Parts of Utah or even Central Arizona, Phoenix, Tempe, Chandler, Mesa. If we're talking Southwest, those are better candidates. If we're talking Austin, they're already suffering the joys of gentrification and sort of the clearing out of culture in favor of its new matrix. That was a Star Trek II half planned, half thought out reference. You cannot simply drop hey, we're going to be the next Silicon Valley onto a city and explode everyone who is there into the suburbs or into a unlivable circumstance. Ooh, the cost of living is only up 50% now. And Vegas will head that way regardless, because there are just enough selfish rich people to come here and do the same. So this is a great program, FFS Talk. I'm sorry, Cafe Genius Impresarios is a great program for speaking with other entrepreneurs and innovators or those in the space in general, which we have done. So there were interviews in the early days that were, by all accounts, that people told me directly, interesting and worth listening to. So that would be nice to return to at some point. Now, ideally, when the and I've talked about this specifically, when the In Las Vegas platform sees some daylight, a useful catalog of local content creators will be a prominent piece of that. So the inlos.vegas URL is basically thought out to include a subdomain like contentcreators.inlos.vegas, right? Content creators in Las Vegas. So catalog of content creators will be prominent, and it will help to elevate podcasters, bloggers, and other so-called content creators, it's right there in the name, in this geographical area so that they can be more easily discovered and linked perhaps to their subject matter. So first of all, if you go to any podcast website, and Adam Curry, to his credit, does offer, I think it's called podcastindex.org. Let me check that real quick. Oops, little typo. Podcastindex.org. You can totally look. You look up your podcast. Let me see. Quaggling Sand. Oop, there we are with my old, I got to fix that. Old logo. It's about business and entrepreneurship. That's not really true. It's a casual show about just about anything, etc., etc. So I have no idea how to update my cover art for the channel. I'll have to look into that at some point. But it's a cool idea. Now, what you cannot do is try to find podcasts about, you can find about the name of a geographical area. So if you type in Las Vegas, let's type in Las Vegas, all kinds of audio programs about the Raiders, the Autumn Windbags, Erica de la Vega. That's not about Las Vegas. Vegas Nation, the football stuff. Lockdown Raiders, more Raiders. God Took Me to Las Vegas. Sounds like some religious-leaning programming. Mobbed Up, The Fight for Vegas. Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. Hey, that's probably an audio reading, a book reading, I'm sorry. Las Vegas Real Estate. So yeah, these are all, by name. They could be about Las Vegas, or they could be search matches. So there could be any number of, Barca Talk. No indication that that's about Las Vegas. So you're really going to get a kind of a mixed bag. What would be cool, I think, if you can imagine clicking on a map, a Google map perhaps, or a MapQuest map if you want to go way back, or a OpenStreetMaps map, or if you could click on a map and say, I'm interested in anybody who's created a podcast or audio programming about this restaurant or about my neighborhood or about the whole Vegas area. I'm looking for the content creator that is based in Las Vegas. There are tourists, visitors to the greater Vegas area who create audio programming because they are visiting Vegas. They're huge Vegas fans, and that's cool. So you may want to look for content created by locals or content created about the region. It'd be cool to be able to differentiate those things, right? So some of what I'm envisioning is the ability to locate, and this doesn't have to be just in Vegas, but the nature of Las Vegas makes this interesting, to be able to locate like who has visited this new coffee shop. And there are some very cool, very nicely produced Instagram Reels, or maybe some TikTok videos, even some YouTube Shorts. So many choices about different places. And occasionally I will come across something, 5 new coffee shops in Vegas, or a new bakery, or hey, we finally checked out the whatever. So if you're doom scrolling through what's going on in my neighborhood, or what's going on in Vegas when I go there, you can't really do that because the algorithm won't really have any idea that you're not in Vegas, will it? But if you could say, hey, show me all the cool stuff going on in Vegas, maybe you'll just get some results, not Google-like, but, restaurants in Vegas. Here's some stuff from Norma Helly, or Raised in Vegas, or Sin City, something. There's a whole bunch of content creators here. You just got to stumble upon them or allow the algorithm to drive you in those directions eventually. That seems a little weird, and the motivation for that ends up being, commercial. You're letting the algorithm do the work for the sake of monetization, not for utility for you. So, yeah, people, my For You page or my recommended or whatever, these are useful, but you have to wade through advertising and unrelated or tangentially interesting. Just show me the latest from content creators in Vegas about the newest thing on the strip or whatever. Possibilities. So I think we can do better. But we don't need to replace these existing platforms. We just need to be able to discover people doing this stuff and maybe associate it with a particular, like, hey, let me see all the content that's in the Vegas area about the latest Mexican restaurants that have opened, or the latest, we have our Ethiopian quarter, which is officially recognized by Clark County. So it's like a what do they call it? Cultural district, I think it is. Not to be confused with the Chinatown region of Vegas, which is not officially a cultural district. It's something else. And I thought that was a little strange because they said, hey, Ethiopia is our first cultural district. And of course, everybody says, what about Chinatown? So technically different, practically the same. Either way, two nice cultural districts, and I think there's a third one coming soon to Vegas near you. So when this platform comes out, it'll be an experimental platform, so we can try things like content creators in Vegas, or podcasts in Vegas, or new restaurants in Vegas. It could be anything. That's the whole idea, and we don't have to replace. So it's the idea is to not try to steal people away, but to make stuff more visible, make things easier to find, make links to things or data more visible, maps, timelines, calendars, stuff like that. There are a couple of ideas in the works that might be added to the mix, partially around Innovate for Vegas initiatives. These are show ideas. I've mentioned Agile for Volunteers on that program, the Let's Innovate for Vegas audio program. So Agile for Volunteers, Project Act, these are things that could literally have their own programs as we roll these initiatives out. Those are aimed at other cohorts that are doing something similar with civic volunteerism and community elevation projects and so on. So those might be interesting in niche markets. But anyone really can create any show they want anytime. It's the nature of the internet. So I can experiment with these pieces of content, and if I can get some traction with the In Las Vegas platform, which is intended to be a lot of things, content creators in Las Vegas is only one possibility, and I can kind of insert some new ideas in there and see what happens. And really, one of the secrets of the In Las Vegas deployment is that the platform that we're trying to develop would interoperate with other platforms, so they would hopefully assist in discovering each other and so on. But it seems like an interesting early possibility to do the content creator stuff. Start there. I will almost guarantee there will be food trucks in Las Vegas or something similar. Startups in Las Vegas. The list goes. It's a long list of things. The wish list is long. The list of people working on it, not so much. But I will surely speak about this and more in the near future, either here or in any of the other audio programs, or probably all of them, really, when you think about it. And links to things as I launch them will, of course, be on the buymeacoffee.com/DanHugo profile page, which is essentially a freeform link tree. Link trees are kind of weird, and I think they're sort of they're bug fixes for things like Instagram, which don't really follow the internet way of doing things. So link trees have kind of moved to a new kind of they've moved in a direction that I'm not a big fan of. So a freeform page and some other facilities on sites like buymeacoffee.com and Ko-fi.com. Ko-fi, I'm going to start trying to announce things there because they have sort of a short post notion, and it will give people a reason to maybe visit both. Who knows? So different ideas, different short-term and long-term entrepreneurial endeavors. There's an entire other startup idea that I can talk about at some point about sentiment, what people think about products and stuff, services here in Vegas when they visit. And that's all I'll say about that for the moment. But that is where I will leave today's episode as we enter. This is the first episode of Season 1. Wait, Season 0 was before? Yes, programmers start counting at 0. 0 indexing is the only way to go. Season 0 wrapped up last week. On to Season 1, which already started almost 40 minutes ago. Thanks for listening. Thanks for your continued listening to future episodes this season. Go back and listen to some if you missed them. Don't forget to visit buymeacoffee.com/DanHugo and or Ko-fi.com, ko-fi.com/DanHugo. That's always DANHUGO. And we'll see what happens. Cheers.